Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and this is a bonus reaction episode of the Rock Fight. We have two quick items for you today. First, I'm joined by Tania Lown-Hecht from the Outdoor Alliance for an update on the action we need the outdoor community to take for the current threat to our public lands. And then Eoin Comerford stops by to break down the news that came out yesterday about a pause in the Trump administration's tariffs for China. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss either of those updates.
Welcome to the Rock Fight, Rock Fight, Rock Fight.
Hey everyone, before we keep going here, I need to tell you about our teammates at Darby Communications. Like I've been telling you, if you run an outdoor, an endurance, or an active lifestyle brand, there is no better PR and digital marketing belay partner or drinking buddy than Darby. They can help your business reach new heights, and they might just keep you from falling on your ass. Since we started working with Darby, more and more people, and this is an important point now, guys, I want you to hear me on this, more and more people have reached out to us here at the Rock Fight because of that messaging. Look, guys, I'm dead serious. If they can help us, they can help anybody. Hit them up at darbycommunications.com. Do it today. All right, we are here with Tania Lown-Hecht, I got it right, who is the VP of Communications for the Outdoor Alliance. Welcome to the show, Tania.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thank you for being here. And on such short notice, really, because last Friday we had the CEO of the Outdoor Alliance, Adam Kramer, on. And off air, we talked about how we can regularly update the listeners of the Rock Fight with call to actions and information for everything that's happening as it pertains to our public lands. So we kind of decided, hey, let's do this. We could do this weekly. We could do this a couple times a week, depending on what's going on. I mean, hopefully we get to the point where maybe we don't have to do it at all because, like, gosh, we're just swimming in money and protections and we don't have to worry about it. But for right now, that is not the case.
The dream is not to have to do this. And I really hope we're not doing this multiple times a week. Hopefully.
Tania and I are going to aim to never speak again.
Yeah.
So what is, so it's the week of May 12th. I know a lot happened last week, so I don't know if that's where you're going to start, but like, what is the latest when it comes to our outdoor playgrounds for the week of May 12th, 2025?
Yes. So the week of May 12th, the update is really from last week, but it's going to definitely go into this week. So basically what happened last week is Republicans released they have this big mega bill that they're going to pass through this process called reconciliation, which Adam probably talked about. It has all sorts of stuff in it. So it has a bunch of public land stuff as well as lots of other things. We'll have like Medicaid and Medicare and military. It's a big spending bill. The House Natural Resources Committee released their portion of the bill on public lands. It was terrible. Our VP of policy is like, this is the worst bill that we've ever seen that has a shot of passing. Really bad stuff across the board, just like giveaways to oil and gas companies and gutting NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act. Cutting out the public process, lots of really bad stuff that we don't like. The only good side of it was that there weren't any public land sales in the big bill. And there were a bunch of threats that there were going to be public land sales in the bill. Like when Republicans first started talking about it, they were talking about including public land sales as a way to offset spending and tax cuts. And we did a ton of advocacy on it. So people were writing, hundreds of thousands of letters to their members of Congress. And we were pretty pleased because we thought, hey, this advocacy works. There's no big land sales in there. That was a big threat. Everything else is like pretty much garbage, but at least we kept this out. So we were happy about that. And then they do a markup, which is like the whole committee goes through it, reads through the bill, and they vote on it. It's a little bit performative. It mostly gets passed on party lines. Republicans control the committee. But in the middle of the night, like literally 11, 12, two Republicans introduce an amendment to sell off a bunch of public land. So it's Amidai and Malloy, they're from Nevada and Utah, introduced this amendment to sell off a bunch of public land. It gets passed through the committee. So one Republican, Jeff Hurd from Colorado, voted against it. But ultimately, at the end, he voted for the whole package. And so coming out of that the next morning, we all wake up to this news and we're like, oh, shit, this gets introduced in the middle of the night. So there's no warning. There's no public process. There's no way we can weigh in the way we're going to weigh in on the other stuff that we've had the text for. And we're scrambling to try to figure out, well, like, what's the land that they're suggesting? How much is it? Why are they doing it? Initially, we thought it was just maybe 11,000 acres. It wasn't totally clear. That's a small parcel. That's not really that big. Outdoor Alliance, we're not opposed to public land sales at all, but there's a process for doing that.
Right.
And mostly the sale of public lands is supposed to be used for conservation. So maybe you're like trading, you're trying to like, there's a bunch of patchwork areas, you're trying to sell off some and make whole parcels elsewhere. Or you're trying to buy up land elsewhere. So there's a process. And we were going to maybe mostly object to the process part of it. Like, you're supposed to have a public process. If you're selling off public lands, you're supposed to direct this to conservation efforts. But as it turns out, when we look closer, there's probably like, almost 500,000 acres in Nevada. I think it's just 11,000 acres in Utah, but it's like right around St. George in southern Utah, where there's actually a ton of recreation. There's a bunch of trails. There's some like bike packing trails, climbing.
Like the best part of Utah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's bad. It's quite bad. It's worse than we thought.
All right. So what do we do?
Great.
What do we do
well,
now?
Now we have to make a ton of noise. So you have to just write your members of Congress, write your lawmakers. If you have a lawmaker who's on the House Natural Resources Committee, that's extra important. But really, any of your lawmakers matter here. And in terms of what the next steps are, like this package they're trying to pass it by the end of the month. That's their target. It may or may not happen. And ordinarily, we'd look to the Senate to kind of have some temperance on these bad ideas. But Mike Lee, who's the chair of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, quite likes the idea of public land sales. So he's not really going to be the voice of reason here. But
right.
I think the real stopping point is, number one, we have to shore up all the Democrats. There was one Democrat who voted to move the package through out of the Natural Resources Committee in the House. So shore up all the Democrats. And then there are a growing number of Republicans that are vocally opposed to public land sales. So Zinke from Montana is the number one. He has said he won't vote for the entire reconciliation package if there's land sales in there. So that's really positive.
That's a big win, right?
It's a huge win because it means they're going to try to pull it out if they want to pass the package. And that's what we need. So we've had some other Republicans make some noise to that effect and would like to shore them up. So like Montana folks are really important. Mike Simpson, some like Idaho, maybe some Utah folks. So, reach out to your members of Congress.
So can you give the listeners, we'll put it in the show notes, a link to reach out and maybe even a list of the folks you would, if you're in their district, like this is the priority, and we could actually list that in the show notes?
Yeah, we can do that.
Awesome.
We have an action alert. So I don't know if you've ever used this to take action with us, but it's like really simple. We build out, you just put in your address and we'll pull up all your members of Congress. And then there's a template letter and you can just edit it, tweak it a little bit. And then it sends to like all your members of Congress.
Yeah, I said it to Adam. That's like
easy.
one of the best things you guys do because it is a little, it sounds so simple. And if you're in the world like you are, it probably is things like, just call them. You're like, what's up? And it's like, a lot of people though, it's like, what do I do? How do I need to write a letter? Like and then you're like, click, done. And it happens,
it's so simple.
So
yes. We've made the bar pretty low for participation, but if you feel inspired, make a phone call. That's great. And like all you have to say, I call my rep all the time and I just say, hey, I know this is coming up. I'm your constituent. I'm not really pleased about it. Don't sell off any public lands. And you don't need to know a lot because some of them, your representatives might not know a lot about this. There's a lot of issues out there. There's a lot of things that lawmakers work on. And so just to hear, hey, I heard that this passed out of the House committee. I really don't like it. Please make sure it comes out of this bill.
And I think when we talk a lot about like kind of the chaos that this administration is like sowing, I was actually listening to a different podcast on a non-outdoor related, and they were kind of lamenting kind of the same themes that we talk about here on the Rock Fight or other outdoor podcasts about the administration, but on entirely different topics. And you can tell like
totally.
This is like that person, their interests, maybe they're not that outdoorsy. They're not really thinking about public lands, but they're thinking about, hey, by the way, did you know this is happening on like X, Y, and Z? And it's like, just because we are kind of like, oh my God, public lands and tariffs affects everybody, but like the public lands thing, that is very specific to this audience. So, hey, listen, if you don't speak up, something else might actually overshadow it. So this is the opportunity for this audience to make a difference.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it is sort of amazing to think about, like we get so locked in on our issue and to think about all of our lawmakers are also dealing with like immigration and military spending and health and human services and education. And a whole host of other issues that they all have to understand.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to be experts
if you're in
on
a district
everything.
where they're like detaining people for no good reason, you might be like, yeah, it's fine. They could sell some lands. I got other things I'm worried about right now, like, which isn't okay. But it's just also like you can understand it's a difficult situation across the board.
Yes. And it's kind of the job of constituents to keep bringing the important issues to the top of the pile.
This is your job, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I first started this job, I didn't know as much about advocacy. And I remember asking Adam and our policy director at that point, like, if we've already written them 5 times, why do I have to keep writing them? Like, don't they already know that this matters? And Luz and Adam both said, they have like the attention span of fleas because they have to work on so many different things.
Yeah.
They have tons of constituents, a lot of stakeholders. They have donors. They have members of their party and committees. They have a lot of relationships. They can't keep track of it all. So the noisier that people are, the bigger difference that makes.
So should we start a segment where you make a prediction of the next terrible thing we're gonna talk about when you come back on the show, like a week from now or whatever? Like
I'd be so rich if I could predict the next terrible thing that was happening.
Well, hopefully this is it for a little bit. We don't have to hear from Tania again. But for right now, we are going to bring Tania back on regularly. This is the call to action for this specific instance. Reach out to your representatives. We do not want them selling off these public lands. This is not all right. Links are in the show notes, and we'll be bringing the Outdoor Alliance back on as we need to continue to fight the good fight.
Thank you so much for having me and for encouraging people to take action. It makes a big difference.
Thanks, Tania. Appreciate it. All right, we'll be right back with the Rock Fight's consigliere, the outdoor industry insider, Captain Eoin Comerford. You're listening to Rock Fight Radio. Hey, ladies, germs, and groms, it's DJ CT, and you're listening to Rock Fight Radio. Get ready for more of that whole foot comfort from Fitz, because we have the follow-up to their massive hit single, Bold Sock. Here it is. Let's drop the needle on So Many Fits.
There's a Fitz for the snow, the road or the trail, like picking a salad from romaine, iceberg or kale, from small to double XL, every size in the line. Custom comfort dressing fits every time. Cushion so thin you barely know it's there, or max out the padding, warm beyond compare. Boots to no shows, invisibles too. Whatever you're after, there's a Fitz for you. So many fits to fit you just right. Whole foot comfort, day or night. From the heel to the toe, the solid to the fair, like a sock custom made for you to wear. Oh, so many fits, yeah, so many fits. No matter your size, no matter your style, Fitz will take you mile by mile. With cushioning choices and sizes galore, slip them on once and you'll ask for more.
And now, back to the show. All right, so we have a quick and unexpected check-in with Captain Comerford, as on Monday, captain of the adventure racing team. You have so many captain titles now. I kind of forgot about the adventure racing team too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
On Monday, there was an update to the whole tariff situation, with the U.S. lowering its tariff on goods from China from 145% to 30%, and China lowering its levy on U.S. goods from 125% to 10%. Let's take a look at the numbers. Eoin, when this all started, one of the critical components was how the new tariffs were placed on top of existing tariffs. That's how we got to such exorbitant numbers, right? So while on paper, it looks great going from 145% to 30%, but that's still an additional 30%, isn't it?
That is correct. Yes. So I think the way that they got to the 30% was by taking the base 10% tariffs that basically everybody got on the 2nd of April, and then adding those on top of the 2 rounds of 10% additional tariffs that had been introduced in the month before. So that gets you to 30%, but that 30% is on top of all the prior tariffs that were in place. So the Section 232 and 301 tariffs that were in place in the first Trump administration that were 7.5% to 25%. And those, of course, are on top of the base MFN or HS code type regular tariffs that you pay from any country. So altogether, like if you take our rain jacket example, okay, so 28% HS code tariff plus 25% Section 301 tariff plus 30% we'll call them the 2025 tariffs, gets you to 83% total tariff on a rain jacket imported from China.
Okay, so that was 53%, and now it's 83%, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is the should the Trump administration come out this Christmas with like a little orphan Annie decoder ring for like how to figure out what your tariff rate is going to be? I mean, ridiculous.
It's crazy, and there's a lot of confusion out there just on LinkedIn today in terms of exactly this question, and it is indeed additional. So I think while some people were like, "Oh, thank God, 30%, that seems almost reasonable." No, it's not. It's still huge. Actually, I was looking back at when the 25% tariffs came out, or the 7.5% were increased to 25%. At the time, people were losing their minds over that, right? And so,
right.
You look at it, and actually, a good friend of the pod, Kent Ebersole, the president of the OIA, Outdoor Industry Association, said that they were an existential threat to the industry at the time.
So that's 25%.
These are the 25% tariffs. Right, exactly. So now you're adding 30% on top of the existential 25% tariff. So, yeah, I mean, I think there is this thought process, and that this is the insane thing about what the administration has done here, where it just sort of resets people's expectations, and they go, 30%, that's totally reasonable. No, it's not. It's still a huge number. And I think what you're going to see here is really the 145%, and we ran through the numbers the other week, really it's basically a trade embargo. Nobody could make 145% work, right, and still be in business or make any kind of money with, you'd either have to massively increase price to the consumer, and in which case demand goes away, or just basically lose a shit ton of money. So the 145 was really basically a trade embargo. So what was going to happen there is just shortages. That was what we were staring, because people were not importing anything under these tariffs. So now that you're down to this 30% level, 30% is painful but doable. And so what you'll see is you will see product come in. In fact, you'll see everyone rush to get the product in, but it's still going to be painful. And so now we're going to swap shortages for basically price increases, because companies will have to increase price to make up for the tariff.
But it's still murky, though, right? Because this is not a permanent resolution. This is like what they're calling a 90-day pause, right? Trump really loves these 90-day windows, apparently. All the experts say it's months for a trade to negotiate a deal. 90 days are all we need, but that's just worse. I mean, it's just like, it's such a, like, if you're a brand and even if you're okay with a 30% tariff on your goods, you still have to contend with that uncertainty. Like, what should you do? Like, you got this window. Like, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the 90 days. It might be fixed next week. It might be go back to 145.
Right, depending on how things go, and if somebody gets pissed off about something. I would say, though, I think the 30% number at least puts a number out there, and it's something that people can at least wrap their brains around in the short term. Yeah, and I think what it's going to do is, as I say, avert the shortages in the short term for fall. We will actually, have fall in terms of with the outdoor industry. But then I think long term, though, it does point to the fact that there will be this may be the best case scenario, 30%, right? Unless there's some major, because I think the first two 10%ers this year were supposedly linked to the fentanyl crisis. Who knows, right? And so maybe those go away. But even to get to the 10% level, you're almost at sort of an overall trade agreement thing. And do I see China getting to a level where it's more favorable than Vietnam or some other countries that don't have all this other bullshit sort of piled up around it as these two global superpowers kind of try to, create dominance in the world? I really don't see that scenario. So I think long term, it's just whether this is a 90-day thing or it's a forever thing, it's still a large number. And the ultimate decision for most brands is going to be the same, i.e., how the F do I get out of China?
Right. I mean, so it's a stay execution for that. So, like, I was going to ask you, what would you do? Is it just like, that's part of, like, there's the short term and the long term, and like that maybe this allows you to kind of have your business operate while you're still planning for the future?
Yeah, exactly. And so what I would do is I certainly wouldn't hold out and hope for it to get lower suddenly from here.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, it might. You can't tell with the current administration, but I certainly wouldn't bank on that. And so I would look to get that product in here as soon as possible. I went through and on LinkedIn today, I reran all the math around this just to see how each of the different scenarios play out. Like, okay, what happens if we just absorb the whole hit as a brand, right? And you know, that's
Yeah.
like, okay, so the retail price stays the same, you know, whatever, we just take the hit, you know, we lose 19% gross margin dollars in that scenario, right? If we just pass it through to the consumer, we take a hit in our margins, in our dealer margins. It's the prices go up by 9% to the consumer, and then, you know, kind of you run down through all the numbers. But I think at the end of the day, where it'll probably land is similar to where we landed after the 25% tariffs when it came into place, which is consumer retail prices went up, you know, by a marginal level, like 10%, I think is as much as a consumer, you know, before you really start to kill demand. And even 10% might be tough in this current environment, but I don't see brands looking to add 20%. I think they'll say, hey, 10% is the most we can do. And maybe it's 5%, but there'll be some push there. And then I think dealer margins have to stay the same, because, you know, retailers they're kind of struggling themselves too. They're not going to be willing to take a lower margin. They just aren't. And so then really what you're left with is, okay, how much of the pain will the factory share? Right. And so that was all the same process back in 2019, 2018, when these first tariffs came around. I think we'll see the same thing again, quite frankly. Yeah. And then just, so figure out how to live with it. Cut every possible cost you can from unfortunately from payroll, from marketing, from everywhere else. Try to survive in the short term, and then figure out how to get out of China in the long term. But get everything here as soon as you can, because you never know. I mean, the 90 days might become 9 days. We don't know. You know,
Right.
just because they say it's 90 days doesn't mean that is actually what's going to happen.
Feel bad for the Port of Long Beach folks, you know?
Oh, well, totally. Well,
they're getting a lot of phone calls today.
Well, yeah, and listening to actually the head of the I think it was the longshoremen, but they were basically saying that you know, their members who kind of rely on overtime.
Yeah.
That you know, that their overtime had been slashed, right, of late, because nothing is showing up. So what you're going to see is the opposite right now. Suddenly, well, not for right now. 4 weeks from now, right?
Right. Good point. Not today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Because so you know, all of that stuff there's a whole bunch of stuff just backed up in China right now, sitting in containers ready to go onto ships. And so now all of these global shipping companies are like, oh hell, what do we do now? Okay, it's because it's not like they've got a bunch of ships just lined up in the harbor, you know, out in, you know, over in China, just waiting to get filled. No, these ships are all over the world trying to do other things and move other stuff to other places. So now you've got to reroute all of these ships, get them to China, get all the stuff loaded on the ships, get the ships steaming across the Pacific to Long Beach and other ports. So we're probably we won't see anything for, I don't know, at least 4 weeks, but probably more like 5 or 6 weeks. Then the avalanche starts, right? And then, you know, and then in 90 days, then it's like a race to get stuff in before the 90-day window, which is you know, sort of early August. So it'll be interesting to see, like, what does it do to shipping rates? Because shipping rates have been plummeting over the last 30 days. Right. Now it's like you could totally see the opposite, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so containers, I think containers peaked at $20,000 a container during the craziness of, you know, whenever that was, 21, 22. Are we going to get back there? Gosh, I hope not. Because we had normalized back then to sort of where we were kind of pre-COVID, like $4,000 a container. And I think like last month it was well below that. So, but you could certainly see it go up to 6,000-8,000.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eye on this as it develops. Owen, thank you so much for your insight and for breaking it down for us.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, that's the show for today. Thanks to Tania and to Eoin for coming on to keep the Rock Fight audience up to speed on the topics that matter most to the outdoor industry and community. We'll be back tomorrow to talk outdoor adventure headlines with Shantae Salabert, and then again on Friday with the Outdoor Town Draft, which also has Shantae and Doug Schnitzbahn. The Rock Fight is a production of Rock Fight LLC. I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And here to take us out, he's here even for emergency bonus episodes. It's Krista Makes with the Rock Fight fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.
Rock fight.